Welcome, Mr. Emile Steenveld, my good friend. And it's been a wild ride the last 2 years since I've known you. Like, we've both grown a lot, and I've grown a lot as a result of knowing you. And one of the reasons why I wanted to do this interview is to talk about the things that I've learned since knowing you. Is mostly to do with the emotional side of life and how to become more emotionally intelligent and how that actually affects everything in our life, and most importantly, our relationships. And particularly in this podcast, I want to talk about how our relationships and affect our eating habits and how to basically live a fulfilled life. So how does one feel whole within themselves to the point where they feel like they love themselves? And it's not just them consciously saying it, but their whole being is in alignment with the fact that they love themselves. And just for background, just for Emile, just for you guys watching who don't know who Emile is a transformational coach, and he's also an emotional intelligence coach. And he has a lot of high level clients, and he does a lot of cool stuff. I met him in Bali a couple of years ago, and he ran a couple of events since then, and he's invited me to both of them, one of which I trained at. And it was funny because before that I was training him in the gym, and he invited me to one of the events, and I was really reluctant to go. And then he kind of like twisted my arm and said, just come. And that was the start of my, if you will, emotional journey to really get to know myself and love myself and accept myself for who I am and all my flaws, and not judge myself. And it's still a journey, right? And so I just want to thank you for playing a part in my growth as a man, and for your vulnerability in helping me to grow. So I appreciate that.
Thank you, brother.
Yeah.
I feel it, bro.
Yeah.
And it wasn't it funny when you think about it, it was April 2018.
Yeah.
No, 2019. It was last year.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. It feels like a long time ago,
yeah.
Especially with what's going on right now. And it's super interesting that, we don't realize that we have to change something until it really smacks us in the face really hard. And otherwise, why would you want to change something, or why would you want to grow from it? And I think this is why our triggers and our pain is our greatest teacher, and it's so valuable. Like, we need to be triggered. We need to look at those triggers, and once we understand that those triggers are deep wounds, that's where your ticket to freedom is. So many of us try to avoid it, or the mind, the ego goes, I don't need that shit. We make a judgment. Why do we make judgment? We make judgment to keep us safe, right? Because, back in the day, we hear that saying that if you were in the wild and there was a saber-toothed tiger there, you'd have to run, fight, freeze, peace, right? So in this world today, we don't need to do that, but we're still making judgment. But we make judgment based on our own opinions, based on our own fears, So it was interesting, even when you came to me, when I said to you, come to our event, and you were like, no. And I was like, he doesn't get it. And I couldn't tell you what you're going to get because I don't know what you're going to get, but I also couldn't force you into coming to get the value.
Yeah.
It's like most of the clients that come to me, it's like, I'm not going to force you to come in and coach with me. It's like, no, you're going to have to want this more than I wanted. But if you're not ready to open up and you're not ready to actually own your shit and be with it, then there's no point. There's no point even coaching you. But eventually you came to the party. And once you got a little taste, you were like, ooh, give me some more.
Yeah. And what I really got from that event, the first one, was the fact that we all wear masks, like every single one of us. And it's just, we're all going through our own shit, but some of us are better at hiding it than others. So then we perceive that other people have it better than us because they're just better at hiding their shit.
Yeah, really good. I mean, we're in a culture right now where everybody is playing a game, and, I think the closer you are to taking that mask off, the happier and more fulfilled you'll be.
Yep.
And we get so caught in the trap. I'm caught in the trap where I'm like, I think I need to act this way in order to get the approval, in order to get the likes, in order to get the comments. And I have to constantly keep pulling myself back into myself and my values and really connect with what fulfills me. And, you know, for anyone that's listening, so many of us are chasing success and this idea of what success looks like. And I'm really about changing that narrative and saying, let's chase fulfillment instead of success, because when we're fulfilled, we're coming from a place from inside that we create that goes, this is in alignment with my values. This is what lights me up every single day. This is how I love to impact and serve other people. And we get fulfillment by serving. Actually, in actual fact, we get fulfillment by supporting other people reach their dreams. But we also have to find out what lights us up first. And if we can do that and then teach other people to do the same, it continues.
Yeah. So let's talk more about that, the fulfilled life, because, you know, this is going out to all of the members of Alpha Shredding, and everyone's trying to get a better body, right? We're all trying to lose fat, build more muscle, look good, and have the validation from that comes from that. So, I mean, that's a external goal, right? Like, when I have the six pack, I'll be happy. I'll be happy when. So can you talk more about this concept of I'll be happy when? Because, you know, in my experience doing this for 4 years, everyone thinks they'll be happy when they finally lose the weight, or they finally, whatever it is for them.
You want to give yourself, your clients, real value? You do?
Yeah.
Let's go there with you.
All right, let's do it.
It was like, she, right? Like, ultimately, it's like, you're going to lead. You lead by example, right?
Absolutely.
So let's go on your story and let's really go into like what happened to you and where did you start realizing that something you have to shift?
Yeah. So I realized that I needed to get in shape when my friend came to hang out with me, because for 27 years, I never took health seriously. Like, I was always interested in health. I'd gotten in shape before at university, but that was when I was 20 and that was only for 3 months. And then I lost all my gains, and then I didn't really have a mentor the next 7 years. So I didn't place any importance on health.
Yeah.
And I didn't have anyone in my life who was taking it serious. So I naturally didn't take it serious, because my environment, I was a product of my environment. And so it was only when my friend came to hang out with me that I started having these desires to improve my physique and improve the way I felt about myself, because I felt like an average man at that point in my life. Like, I was just stagnant in every area of my life.
Yeah.
And so that was my drive. I wanted that power and respect that he had. Like, wherever we would go, like, he would just get the attention. It was like I wasn't even there. I was just his shadow. And I didn't like that. Like, my ego didn't like that. And so he didn't have to tell me to work out and stuff like that. He did drag me to the gym, but I decided for myself that I was going to continue, because I remember him saying when he left, he said, "Oh, are you going to continue doing this?" And I said, "Yeah, I am." And he said, "Why?" And I said, "Well, it's just for me. I just want it for myself." You know, and that was my reason. And then that morphed into, of course, my program, because everyone started asking me how I was getting in shape. But that was, I guess, the driver was I wanted that significance.
Yes. So originally you just said, I wanted the significance, and he got the attention.
Yeah.
And you were tired of being in the shadow.
Yeah.
So then you worked out, you got muscles.
Yeah.
What happened?
I felt better about myself.
Yeah.
But it didn't solve all my problems.
What happened?
I mean, people would look at me in the street in Thailand, like I'd be wearing a singlet.
Yeah.
And then I'll just be in 7-Eleven, and then people would be like looking at me like a lot.
Yeah.
I never had that before.
Yeah.
That felt good.
Yeah.
I'd go out.
How long did it feel good for?
A split second. Like, and then I guess it always feels good.
It felt good for a while, but then when did it, like, it's almost like when we get a new car, right?
Uh-huh.
You jump in this car, it's a brand new car, you drive it around, you drive it for a couple of months, and then all of a sudden the car, it's like, I'm not getting the same feeling I was when I first got the car.
Right.
It's kind of like the similar thing, right? How long did you didn't have the same feeling after a while of it happening? How long after did it change?
I guess I think it always feels good, but for example, just the other day, I was in the supermarket and this guy came up to me and tapped me on the back, and I had my headphones in, took them out, and he's like, "Dude, you have a really nice back." And I haven't had a compliment like that for a while. And I used to get those compliments a lot back when I was starting out, when I was working out a lot. And it feels good, but sometimes you're just like, I don't need that anymore.
But it felt good for a moment, and then after a while, you said you haven't been getting them for a while. But what I'm saying is, like, after a while, after you're getting the compliments and getting them and getting them and getting them, is your self-esteem changing? Is your confidence changing? What happens when you stop getting them? How are you feeling about yourself?
Right.
Right?
Yeah. When I stopped getting them, I still feel good. But that wasn't my drive. This is interesting. I say it wasn't my drive to get the recognition, but a part of me, yes, it was that. It was to feel like I was, feel like a man.
Yeah.
Though I don't want to be average. That's the thing, right? Like in my life, that's the theme without my life is I don't want to be average.
Yeah.
That's why I went on welfare when I was 20 years old, and then I knew that I wasn't going to be average. That's why I was forming my story, and I believed in myself that I wasn't going to be an average person. First entrepreneur in my family, like consistently healthy, trying to set a standard for my family. That's another driver of mine, is to be a role model, be an example. And so that's why I feel, that's probably why I continued doing this.
Yeah. But ultimately, when we say this, it's like you continue doing this, but then it's like something changed, something shifted. It's like, cool, I'm getting the results, I'm looking good. There was a time when you were injured, and you couldn't train as much. What happened?
I felt like a shell of a man.
Exactly. So it's looking at that. The reason why I'm saying this, and the reason why I'm turning back to this whole story of fulfillment, is that fulfillment isn't only when you have a certain thing, because what happens when that thing gets taken away? What happens when your career that you've been known for, which is amazing, you're this amazing coach, PT, and all of a sudden you can't train and you're not in shape anymore? What happens when Bruce Lee, dude does 10,000 kicks in a day, all of a sudden he injures his back and he's bedridden for 6 months? The thing that he loves, right? The reason why I'm asking you this is because what is really fulfillment? Is it only when we do the one thing? Is it only based on one certain thing? Because if it is, then it's not fulfilling, because someone can take your fulfillment in a moment. Fulfillment goes deep, goes into us. It goes into our intrinsic values. But if we're basing it on something outside of ourselves, every time that thing is taken away, it evaporates in a second. And I know it because when I used to be a model for 12 years, the moment I was working really well, I was confident. The moment I stopped working, I started questioning and doubting myself. And I was like, what the hell? I was in Hong Kong, I was working my ass off. In Singapore, I was killing it. In Australia, I was working really well. The moment I go to another country and the recession hits, all of a sudden, what I thought was confidence back then disappeared. So what is confidence? What is that I feel like a man? You know what I'm saying? And this is where I think you're going deeper. Is you're starting to ask deeper questions. You're starting to find out where your shadow is. You were playing, Aaron, and I'm not saying you were shallow on purpose, but you were playing in this area where it's like, if I'm up here and I have the muscles, then I'm going to get the attention, and that's going to make me feel good, and that feeds me. Now, if I'm giving someone permission to feed me, I'm also giving them permission to starve me. Yeah. And the first thing I got told when I started modeling was like, from one of my yoga teachers, he said, Emile, people tell you you're good looking. And I said, yeah. And he goes, how does it feel? I said, it feels good. He goes, but what happens every time? What happens when you get older and they stop telling you you're good looking? And that's when I was starting to realize I can't wait for people to tell me what I am. I need to talk to myself like that. I need to embrace myself like that. I need to look at the dark sides that I don't like about myself and nurture it, instead of like, oh, I'm just going to push it aside like it's nothing. Because so many of us are doing that. What we're doing is we're trying to just show the shiny parts of us. And it can look great on the outside. And it can look like the muscular dude. But that dude out there also that has the cars and the houses, and it looks great on Instagram, and they have the big YouTube channels. But at night, they sit here and they sit on their phone and they just scroll and they keep tweaking and this and that, and they're bored. And then disconnected, and then they might invite a girl over, and the girl comes over and they're bored of that girl, so then they invite another girl, and it's to the point where it's like you're getting so much money and so much attention that you don't even know what the point is anymore. That's not fulfillment. Right? So I'm always like, chase fulfillment and check in what is important to me, what's my values. And when I understand my values, I understand my worth. And if I stick to that, it doesn't matter if anybody likes it or not. I like it.
Right.
And if I like it and I love what I'm doing, I don't need permission. I don't need approval from other people outside of me to give that to me in order for me to feel a certain way about myself. And it's not an easy, I mean, it's a process that takes time, but it's the most fulfilling, it is fulfilling, because you literally wake up and you're like, I don't need anything or anybody to make me feel a certain way.
And that's the ultimate state, right? The state of not needing anything.
Yeah.
The state of needing nothing. And it's a fascinating concept. I'm still wrapping my head around it, because I'm, every day I'm trying to get to that place. Even that statement, what I just said, I'm trying to get to that place.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Well, again, you did it again. When I get to that place, then I'm going to feel it. Right. It's not coming. It's not going to the place. It's coming from the place.
Right.
It's coming back to the simple daily measures of like, what am I doing daily that's lighting me up? The small things. It's coming back to simplicity, because the moment we try and complicate it, we try and make it bigger and grand. And we think if we get more money or more likes or more followers or more people admiring us, then it's going to take away the pain that I don't like myself. And so many people do it. We've got a culture out here that's like, the next thing that's coming out is TikTok. The next thing that's coming out is, I don't know, is it Reels or something else? Some other thing with TikTok. But what I'm saying is that every time something jumps on, everyone's like, oh, I got to get on to the next thing. Otherwise I'm going to fade out and people aren't going to follow me. And guess what? If people don't follow me, then what does it mean? That I don't exist?
Yeah.
Right. So it's how do I show up every day for myself and not rely on that, especially in a culture today that values this followers. If a person has more followers, then they must be important.
Yeah, so I think the root of everything, your mum said it, we were on the bus at one of your events last year, and she said, we live in a not enough society. And I was like, that is so true. Like, not enough money, not enough boobs, not enough, not enough anything, whatever the thing is. Like, it's not enough, so we need more to make us feel worthy and worth it, make us feel loved and accepted. And I think the root of everything that I've experienced, I can't talk for everyone else, but just from my own experience of life thus far, a lot of the root of it's been, I'm not enough.
Yeah. And
it's been a subconscious belief, but I've been consciously carrying out things in my life. For example, like chasing my ex-girlfriend for 7 months, and that the root cause of that was I had a belief that I'm not enough.
Yeah.
If she doesn't love me, she doesn't want me, therefore I'm not enough. Therefore I must try to keep her to feel like I'm enough. And it's like, I'm out of it now,
but even though you're not like really like, that's not the real thing that you want.
No,
it's the wound that's speaking. It's the trigger.
Yeah.
And the trigger of I'm not enough. I had the same story. I'm not enough. And it does come up every now and then, especially even with my girlfriend, where things will come up and I'm like, oh, that really triggered me. But the triggers that you're experiencing is what you get to look at and you get to own.
What's a trigger for people watching? They're not used to that terminology.
So a trigger is anything that gets you, like, think about your day when you're feeling good and somebody could say something to you, and it could be something so small as, oh, I wish you did it like this. Oh, maybe you should try this differently, or giving you feedback, right? Usually a lot of people get triggered by feedback because it can trigger that they didn't do it right. Your partner can trigger you. Maybe they're making you jealous. Maybe they're looking at something on Instagram and all of a sudden you get triggered, or they say something to you. And a trigger is something that gets your emotion shifted in a second. So what will happen when you're getting triggered is all of a sudden maybe your gut drops, or your mood shifts from like you're happy a minute ago, and then someone says something and then you're like, oh, why am I feeling down right now? Or what got me upset? So anything that triggers your breath as well. Because remember, whenever we're calm, your breath comes in and out endlessly. It's like flow. But when we're triggered or if we're upset, we almost hold it because it's like, what the fuck was that? So a trigger is something that it's an old wound. It's actually a deep wound from your past. And what happens when you're younger is maybe something happened where you didn't feel enough and you made an agreement. And that same exact feeling is felt again from when you were young, when you didn't feel enough. And if you haven't dealt with it, then it keeps on repeating it again and again and again. So what do is we're going, if a person triggers me, we're like, you made me jealous, or you made me feel like this. I mean, in fact, I can't make you feel anything. I can't make you feel jealous. I can't make you feel angry. I can't make you feel sad. It's like I'm actually choosing to feel that emotion. If I'm getting triggered, guess whose trigger it is?
Yours.
It's mine. If you're getting triggered, guess whose trigger it is?
Mine.
Exactly. But what happens even in relationships, what we do is, because we're so close and connected, we mirror each other. When we're mirroring each other, what's going on is like it's like you've got a magnifying glass and you're shining it on all that person's shit, and they're doing the same thing back unconsciously. But your trigger is your best friend. It's going to be your ticket to freedom. In fact, whenever I get triggered to the point where I'm like, oh, what was that trigger about? And I dive into it. When did I first feel that trigger? Or what was the judgment that I was making? Because a trigger can pull out a judgment straight away. It's like I get triggered, and then what a judgment does, judgment is your ego. And your ego will justify why you're making a judgment about somebody else. And why does it make a judgment? Because if I make a judgment and say that you're wrong, then I have right to, right? Because I feel superior. If I'm making you wrong, then I have a right to judge you and be like, your behavior was like ridiculous. You're acting like this and that, right? But underneath that judgment, there's a fear. And maybe it's either a fear or it's something where you got treated a certain way when you were a child. Like, and a pure example is my judgments that I make. If I find someone being loud or being a show off or like, obnoxious, like playing guitar and like singing, or not in a way where they're just playing guitar, but I'm saying like where they're just showing off and being loud and obnoxious, I get triggered by that. You know why?
Why?
It's because my dad growing up would always say to me, don't be loud, don't be cocky, don't be this. So how I received love from him was to be quiet, be seen but not heard, and don't be too obnoxious, because if I was showing off or anything like that, or I would get my ass whipped. So I worked out a way to get love. So usually our triggers are connected to the way we would receive love as children. So when you check into that part, you'll start to see exactly where your triggers are starting, but you also get to own your triggers.
So this is an interesting concept, because a lot of people, I've experienced so many times in my life where I've blamed my partner for things. And that the whole concept of blaming is an interesting phenomenon, how you describe it is if you said when you blame, you take away your power.
Yeah.
So could you elaborate on that concept? Because I feel like for me, this was a big revelation to realize that when I'm pointing the finger, there's three fingers pointed back at me. So, and I'm losing my power in blaming.
Yeah. So why do we blame in the first place? We blame because it's easier. Because when you were a child and you got told who was responsible for this, you point to your brother or your sister and be like, she did it, because you're going to get your ass whipped.
Yeah. So
nobody liked the concept of responsibility, because that means it was heavy. It's like, I'm going to have to deal with the repercussions of what I did. So I think responsibility needs to be redesigned, that as children, if you get told who's responsible for this and you own up to it, you get a reward. Now that you've owned up to it, cool, now what are you going to do about it to fix it? Versus, I'm going to whip your ass and punish you. And responsibility equals freedom. So I always use a concept which is responsible, being able to respond to a situation. And if I'm not able to respond to a situation, then I'm blaming. And if I'm blaming, the moment I blame you, the moment I literally tie my arms behind my back and I'm stuck, I can't move. Because the moment I say, Aaron did it, I can't change anything about that. Now let's give you an example, right? I was going to Singapore and I was late. I was studying for an exam and I was doing NLP, and which is neuro-linguistic programming exam, and I had my headphones in and I couldn't hear anything. And I was just like in my work. And then I was on the other side of the airport. I had already gone through customs. I was like waiting like 7 gates down from mine.
Yeah.
Right. And all of a sudden I was like, what time is it? And I check and I'm like, oh my God, my plane is boarding. So I start running towards my gate. As I get to my gate, they close the gate. And I'm like, what the hell? I'm like, the plane's still there. I'm like, just let me on. They're like, no, we can't. I'm like, what do you mean? They haven't even left. Like, they're like, we've already taken your bags off the plane. I was like, oh. So the first thing I tried to do was charm them. Didn't work. And then the second part was like, instead of blaming them, so you got 2 choices. You can either blame them or you can blame yourself. This is what people do. So if you're a people pleaser or you don't want to be harsh or rude, then you blame yourself. If you're an arsehole and you don't take responsibility for anything, then you throw it at them. Both of those options are going to keep you stuck. So the first option I went for, which was I blame myself. How can you be so stupid? You're an idiot.
Yep.
What are you doing? You were on the other side of the airport. I had to get to Singapore because the course started the next day. So I could constantly keep beating myself up, but that's not going to give me any other result except for more shame and more guilt. So I had to go, okay, well, it's done. I can't get on the plane. What can I do now? That's being able to respond to the situation. So the moment I was able to respond to the situation, I just literally go, okay, what are my options now? I could have booked another flight, and then I was on another flight 3 hours later. But I could have held on to that.
Yep.
But that wouldn't change my situation in the end.
Yeah.
And in the end, I value freedom, and I have to always ask myself, okay, am I still beating myself up now? And you'll know if you're beating yourself up because you feel like you have no options. You'll know if you're stuck in blame because you don't feel like you've got options with your next choice. You don't feel like you have choices.
That's fascinating because I had a similar incident that happened to me. Same thing. Got to the gate. The plane was actually moving away. It was like reversing. And I was like, look, just stop it. It's like, it's not even gone yet. It's still like reversing. Just stop it. Like what was it? The attachment to the plane was still there. I was like, look, I can literally walk on. Look, So that happened to me as well. But it's interesting. The difference is, I beat myself up for a long time about that for like a day or two. And then I also phoned my dad, and he obviously, it was interesting because I knew what was going to happen when I told my dad. He's just going to give me shit for it.
What was going to happen?
Like, he's just going to be like, oh, why'd you do that? Like, all of my inner self-talk, he's going to add to it.
Yeah.
I'm like, I knew this was going to happen, but I need to tell him anyway, just to inform him. But yeah, so I beat myself up for like a day or two about that. And the difference is, as you told your story and I tell mine, like, is you had your values in place. Like, you valued freedom. So you were able to, go into that responsibility mode faster.
Yeah.
Because you had your values guiding you. So if someone doesn't have their values in place, they don't know what they value, then they can stay in that pity party and just that negative self-talk, the judgment. It's
a habit. So people get a habit of beating themselves up or making them wrong, especially if they had critical parents or parents that were very like, every time you did something would criticize or be like, oh, you should do it this way. Oh no, it's better to do it this way. And didn't allow you the freedom to do it how you wanted to do it. And when you made mistakes, weren't very compassionate around it. So I think it's about recognizing, am I a perfectionist? Do I constantly need to have the result of winning every time I try something, or I put myself out there, or I attempt something, especially with like your clients, yours, that where they may have tried 7 different diets and different ways of, they're going to be the biggest people to beat themselves up. I've worked with people that have been obese and have these emotional eating patterns, and what do? Like, they make one mistake and they're like, oh, fuck it, the day's gone. Yeah. I'll just binge eat the rest of this and then I'll start tomorrow. Yeah. Right. And it's recognizing that there's no such thing as a perfect way. It's like, just because you made one mistake doesn't mean that all of the progress before is a waste. Yeah. So it's about recognizing the patterns, the stories that you tell yourself on a daily pattern, and asking yourself, like, how can I be more compassionate? If this was a friend of mine outside of myself, how would I speak to him? If this was a little boy in front of me and he made a mistake, how would I treat him? Yeah. Right? Because when I get them to do that, that actually separates you from yourself and that inner chatter that you constantly do when you get things wrong. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like that quote. If you spoke to your friends how you spoke to yourself, you would have no friends.
Yeah. Yeah. I can be the biggest harsh critic sometimes. I'm like, wow, Emile, come on.
Yeah.
And I literally talk outside to myself, literally where I'm like, it's okay. It's all right. Even if I feel guilt and shame, I'm like, it's all right. You're learning from it. You're going to get through it. It's like I'm almost like that coach versus a commentator. And the difference is the coach is going to be by your side. He's going to go, just get back up, do it again. How can you learn from this experience and what can you do differently next time? The commentator is going to talk shit.
Yep.
He's going to be on your side when everything's going well and be like, yeah, great job, Emile. But then the moment you make a mistake, you'll be like, wow, what a loser. He's going to judge you.
Yep.
Right? So it's about recognizing those stories and those thought patterns and understanding that they are habits, but the more you are aware about how you speak to yourself first and your inner world, then you'll see the direct correlation of the reflection of your outer world.
Yeah. Yeah. I tell my clients this all the time. It's all about the self-image, how you see yourself. Because if I don't feel like I'm worth it, then it's like, for example, in the dating realm, if I don't feel like I have a lot of value to offer this woman, then I'm going to get cold feet around her. I'm not going to approach her and I'm going to convey the lack of confidence. And that's going to be a turnoff, right? It's like, that's the best example I can give in that realm. Because it's literally, if you don't feel like, quote unquote, you're the shit, then you're going to convey the negative emotions and then that's not going to be attractive, right? And so when it comes to nutrition, it's interesting because the subconscious, we're not aware of it. Like, for example, at the event, there was one guy, Chris, at the event, at your event, he said that he hated his body.
Yeah.
And I had never heard someone articulate it the way he did. He said, if I don't like my body, why am I going to put the good food in my body? And it hit me like a ton of bricks. I was like, wow, that's so right. I mean, if you hate yourself, if you don't like the way your physical body is, why would you want it to get better? Like, even if you consciously want it to improve, subconsciously, there's a whole lot of shit going on that you need to work on. So how does someone work on that? If they hate themselves, they look at themselves in the mirror, because I mean, most of the people that come to me for help, I wouldn't say they love their body, right? So how can someone who doesn't like the way they look physically, start loving themselves again?
It's interesting. One of my boys, Jason Goldberg, mentioned this the other day because he was speaking on one of my courses and he was like 300 pounds. And he mentioned that he had to lose weight. But it was like, and I think he started off, I don't know if he had an operation or something. I'm not sure what the operation was, but he lost 30 kilos from it. He goes, but that was only the majority of it. The rest of the weight was in his mind. And he had to really start to nurture himself and start to talk to himself in a nice way and really understand that this is not a 6-week challenge. This is a lifestyle change.
Yep.
And it's not in trying to go, I need to get here by this time, otherwise my life's going to be over. It's like, no, day by day, bit by bit, I'm going to slowly transform. And I think the way we transform our relationship with ourselves is not by like telling yourself after 25 years or 30 years of beating yourself up that I'm just going to say some affirmations and I'm going to get better and things are going to change. It's like, how do I match my actions with my words? And how do they fill my cup up every single time and recognize that every time I do drink plenty of water, that is me giving love to myself. That is me making sure that I'm hydrated. It's me making sure that my mind can work. That is me making sure that I'm flushing out toxins.
Yep.
Every time I eat something, that is me saying, thank you for the nutrients. Thank you for nourishing my body, right? Even if you're healthy and you look good, if you're talking shit to yourself, you might as well be eating McDonald's.
That's true.
There's no difference, right?
True.
So it's like you can look great, and I've seen it. I was a model for 12 years. I've seen people that look great, amazing, but they look in the mirror and they're still not skinny enough, or they're still not muscly enough, or they're still not this enough. So it's not just people that are obese. It's all types. It's like you're never going to be satisfied until you actually reconnect with your body, with yourself inside. And that means going, okay, what are all the things like I don't like about myself, and make a list. Make a list of all the 5 things. Make 5 or 10 things that you judge yourself for, and then make a list of 10 things that you like about yourself. All right. And if you want to rebuild that relationship, you want to correlate the two. You want to get them both connected. So you need to start nurturing all the parts that you don't like about yourself, and do that on a daily basis. Make a structure for yourself to go, okay, how can I nurture myself in this area? What would I say to my friend if I want to become more confident in this area? What is the skills I need to practice on a daily basis to catch that thought, right? Because it's just a thought. Now, we have 60 to 80,000 thoughts a day. They're not always true. But what we can do is we can have a thought come in, and it's a disempowering thought, and we can hold on to that, and we can think that's the truth because of a trigger. Now, the moment we start correlating that relationship and making it whole, understanding that your dark side is as important as your light side, your dark side's teaching you more, because it's going, how can I nurture that side of me? How can I be kind to that side? How can I allow that side to be seen? How can I be vulnerable with that side? Now, you talked about vulnerability. What's one thing that you've been vulnerable with lately that you would never share 5 years ago?
My relationships.
Exactly. And why?
Because it's part of my growth. I feel like I have value to offer other people, because a lot of people are going through it.
But why wouldn't you share that 5 years ago?
Because I just wasn't at that point in my life. I just wasn't conscious. I wasn't aware of it.
And what happens if you shared it 5 years ago? How would you feel about yourself?
That I literally thought vulnerability was weakness.
Yeah, and a lot of people do.
And I don't want to be perceived as weak, so therefore I'm not going to share.
Exactly. But if we actually nurture and transform that soul that we have, and then we get through that and we get the learnings, what did I learn from that experience? Every single pain point, every single hard lesson you've gone through, every single thing that has happened to you is actually happening for you. And if we can take the learnings from those experiences and go, what did I learn from that experience? Maybe your first girlfriend dumped you, and then
that was true. She did.
So maybe your first girlfriend dumped you, and then all of a sudden it's like, yo, shit, like I don't want that to happen again. That really hurt.
Yeah.
So it's like, what can I learn from that experience? And this is the thing. It's like when we get dumped, or someone breaks up with us, or someone leaves us, that can trigger that story, that abandonment of like not being enough.
Absolutely.
And ultimately it's like, what do I want to do? I've got to become better. I've got to get more muscles. I've got to become smarter. I've got to become funnier. I've got to become this. I've got to be all these things, because otherwise someone will leave me again.
Yes.
And it's not real. It's an illusion. So it's ultimately, it's like, if I like myself and if I love myself, I know that I'm going to be okay no matter what. So if I go towards that and I constantly put myself out there in that space where I'm really embracing my dark side, and I'm really embracing and nurturing those vulnerabilities, eventually the scars won't go away because they're internal, but that's what makes you. And when you learn from that and you go, okay, well, now that I've started to learn my value and starting to learn my worth, I'm not basing my value on this person liking me. That person doesn't want to be with me, then they don't want to be with me. That's fine.
Yeah.
But the most important question is, do I want to be with me?
Yeah.
Do I want to sit around with me? Do I want to connect with me?
Yeah.
Because if you're not doing that, then how can you expect somebody else to do the same?
Yeah.
And I think once you transform your vulnerabilities, then you can turn your mess into your message. You can use that as power. But until you transform that story, every time you share that, that's going to be really painful. And you're still going to feel those embarrassing feelings because you haven't actually dealt with it.
Yeah. And that's interesting. So the dealing with it is part of the pain. Like, to actually deal with those issues that we have within ourselves, it's painful to face it.
Yeah.
It's easier to watch Netflix or have sex or drink alcohol or, whatever the escapism route is for people. So how do they, I know what the answer is, but I'm asking for the audience, right? Like, how do people face that pain and face themselves and their dark side?
Well, yeah. So usually when we have to go out of our comfort zone, we expect that we're going to get a reward. Otherwise, what's the point in doing it? So we have to recognize that going to your pain is a process, and that it doesn't need to be all wiped out in one day. The biggest thing that people think that they're going to do is that I'm going to do a little bit of self-development, or I'm going to go to a seminar, or I'm going to read a book, and then I'm never going to feel that feeling again. Now, this is why it's wrong, because if you're going to a seminar or you're going to a coach because you want to get rid of it, you're never going to get rid of it. In fact, it's just going to sit there and it's going to be harder and harder. And every time it comes back up again, like I've heard it. I've had girls come into a workshop and they're like, I finally dealt with this. And then I'm like, oh, and then I attracted the same guy again. And I was like, they're like, why does this keep happening to me? Why does this keep happening to me? Is because you don't want it to happen and you focus on that not happening. I don't want to meet an arsehole. I don't want to meet an arsehole. I don't want to meet an arsehole. What am I focusing on? I'm focusing on the arsehole. So whatever you focus on will grow.
Yeah.
I don't want to get hurt. I don't want to get hurt. I don't want to get hurt. So what am I focusing on? I'm not getting hurt. I get a person that hurts me because I'm looking for it. Oh, he's going to do the same thing again. I'm in fear. But if I don't have that fear, and it's not about the fear, it's about transforming that story and understanding that, recognizing the signals and going, oh, I'm noticing that there's the same pattern playing out and me doing something different this time. I'm going to speak up about this. No, this is not how this is going to go. No, you didn't get to treat me like that. I want to have a conversation with you. No, I'm not being emotional. My emotions matter, right? So it's like, I'm not going to get shut down like I was last time. So every experience that you have, you can take the learnings with you. Now, when I was talking about this, what was the question you asked me again?
I was like, how do people face their dark side and face the pain?
Yeah. So how do we face our dark side? Basically, first you have to acknowledge your dark side. You have to acknowledge that you have a dark side. You have to acknowledge all the parts, all the stuff you're embarrassed about, all the stuff that you don't like about yourself, all the stuff you like to hide and avoid and pretend not to know about yourself. Then you have the task of actually acknowledging it and bringing it up. But you don't need to bring it all up at once because it can be overwhelming. So you want to learn to recognize those parts where you're like, oh, I would never share that normally. And then you want to actually learn how can I heal from this? How can I be vulnerable with this and actually like learn to nurture that? What made you start sharing about your girlfriend? Or
I just felt like I had some valuable information to share with people, and it's part of my journey to. One of my values is vulnerability.
Yeah, and
you told me write down your values and write down what they mean to you and how you're going to action them on a daily basis. And that was like one of the most powerful things I've ever been taught, because now I look at my values and I have to be acting in accordance. Well, I don't have to, that language, I have to be. Even breaking down the language is important. So I make a conscious effort to be in alignment with my values every day. And that makes me happy. So if I'm happy, then everything else is good, right? And this is what we're talking about, self-love, right? So vulnerability is one of my values. So for me to make a video, that's kind of like, it's kind of like building a habit. The more I action that, the more it is ingrained in me to be vulnerable, and the easier it gets. And so for now, it's quite easy for me to just talk about the experiences that I've overcome that are quite vulnerable when people hear about them. Like most people who are not in this realm, if they hear me talk about like what was going through my mind when I was trying to get my ex-girlfriend back and, you know, all that kind of stuff, it's pretty interesting and people can resonate. I've had a lot of people reach out to me saying they feel the same way. Like they used to attract partners who they viewed as projects. And, you know,
I'm going to conquer this. And then you got it and you're like, it's not giving me the same feeling.
Yeah. And then you end up feeling like I'm giving all my energy to this project, this woman, you know, inspiring her, supporting her, everything, giving her the energy, but I don't feel like I'm getting anything back because I'm giving so much, right? And that was one of the issues that I've had up until now with my relationships.
So even now you're like, okay, well, vulnerability is actually not weakness.
No.
So it's like when you really understand that and you turn the meaning of that around, it's like when I actually transform what I'm vulnerable about, I can now use that as power. So all of a sudden I'm like, I can show you how it's power and like, I want to do it. So now it gets you to step outside your comfort zone. But before that, if I said, just go share what you're vulnerable about, like, what's the point? I don't know what I'm going to get from this. I don't want to share that. Stuff that.
Right.
That's going to be painful and people are going to judge me, especially if I haven't actually nurtured those parts of me yet.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So we have to make sure we're nurturing those dark parts of us.
Yeah.
Making sure that we're actually talking nicely to ourselves. How would I talk if it was a child? How would I talk if it was a friend? if I was to separate myself and take myself outside of me, what kind of conversation could I have with him or her?
Yeah. So why do people strive and achieve so much, but then still find out that they're empty? Like, let's say whatever goal someone has, they've achieved it. You know, you work with a lot of high-level entrepreneurs, so do I, and they achieve so much in their life, but they're still not happy. And they're still, most of the time, if they've achieved the material success and financial success that they've dreamed of, oftentimes they have quite major issues with their relationships. And that results in them not being fulfilled, and they're still chasing. It's like the horizon that keeps, you can't get there. There's no end goal.
Well, think about this. Why do we come, like, we love to compete. You know, we love to come number one. What happens when you become first, when you become number one?
I said this the other day, you get power and you feel like you're enough.
Yeah. So when you become number one or you're the best in what you do, it's like, I want to be the best in the world at this. I want to be the best in the world at that. I want to be the best actor. I want to be the biggest thing. It's like, one, you just say you become an actor. All right. So you go to Hollywood, you go and you try out for years, you finally become an actor, right? You get your first audition, you get a movie, and then all of a sudden you're like, yes, I've made it, right? All of a sudden your part gets cut. Oh my God. I'm not going to be in that movie. I was already telling my friends I'm going to be in that movie. Then you try again, you go to more auditions, you go on more auditions, you finally get a next part. You get in, you're like, I hope to God, oh my God, I hope that I don't get cut. I hope it doesn't get cut. My part goes through. Then you're like, well, now I'm an actor. I need recognition. I need to get a lead. Like, so you go for your next part, you finally get the next part, finally get a lead. And then you get the lead and you're like, wow, I got the lead. I'm the top dog in this thing now, all right? Everyone's seeing me. I'm the actor. I'm the main person. Still not hitting it. I need an Oscar. So then you act more, you get a few more leads. You're still not getting the Oscar nominations. You're still not getting the recognition that you want. So you keep going, and it's like, you want to get best actor or best this or best that. It's like, I need to get more and more and more and more. It's like, it's almost like the harder I try and the more I put out there, I'm going to get fed from people. Wow, you're amazing. Wow, you're great. You're this, you're that. But it's like, ultimately, it's like saying, you got 100,000 followers on Instagram, but you still don't have a blue tick, right? So it's like that extra bit of thing that's going to make me feel like I'm enough.
Yeah.
Now, we think about this when we think about recognition and constantly getting and constantly feeding, constantly trying to be number one. It's like, usually the driver is that, and what I find with high performance is that it usually stems from a place of not enough, or not feeling like worthy, or not feeling like they were seen or heard. So the driver is even larger, right? I've got another client that was she's a fashion designer and she's amazing. And I said to her, what drove you to create dresses? And she said, I hated what I looked like in other people's clothes. So that hate that she had, that what she looked like, drove her to create a massive fashion brand where she's like, I wanted to make girls feel like they were worthy when they wore the dresses, because she didn't feel worthy. So what happens is that she created this brand, and now girls all over the world are wearing her dresses. Is she still feeling worthy now that she has all this money and she's got all these people wearing dresses? No.
Right.
Because it's still coming from a place of lack and fear and judgment and scarcity. You may have the money, you may have the success, and it looks great, but you're still not going to be fulfilled on the inside. And it's a battle, and it's a process, and it's a constant thing of like, what are my values and who am I without this? Right? So I think for anyone that's like watching these people that are number one, it's not always what it looks like. I watched The Last Dance the other day, and we were talking about this, about Michael Jordan, and I'm watching it, and I played basketball my whole life. So I was like, I already knew half the stories, but not to that depth. to the point where I was like, when I was watching him, I always wanted to be Michael Jordan. And then I saw his life and I was like, I don't want to be Michael Jordan. I was like, I don't want people coming at me all the time. Like I'm an introvert, you know, I don't want people coming to me all the time. I don't want people talking about me and like making up stories. His father was murdered and they were still telling stories like maybe Jordan's gambling habit had something to do with his murder. Like that could be the worst thing, right? People judging you on a consistent basis, people making you out, like putting you on this pedestal. And what happens when you put someone on a pedestal? There's no room for him to make a mistake. So when I saw that, I was like, wow, I don't really want that. Right. And you will only realize it when if you really to spend a few days or a week in that person's shoes, you'll be like, yeah, this is cool. I get the attention. I get all the love and people praise me. But the moment you make a mistake or you're human, people are going to bash you. Right. It happened the other day on the Red Table Talk with Will Smith and Jada Pinkett. I don't know if you saw that.
No.
They basically, Jada was sharing how they split up and Jada ended up having a relationship with another dude. And they brought it to the light because that other dude, August, actually shared it and it went out to public. So all of a sudden, everybody's talking about Will and Jada's relationship. Now, everybody loves Will. And this is a dude that everybody loves, and he's human, and he's humble, and he's charismatic, and probably one of the most real dudes in Hollywood. And he was so real, like I felt for him, and people still gave him shit. So it's like, yeah, there's the bonus of being number one and being on top and being in the spotlight, but there's also what comes with that is the critical people, the people that are going to be the keyboard warriors, the people that are going to talk shit to you, the people that are going to smack you down. And it's up to you to have such a strong base and foundation in your values, because if you don't, you will literally get knocked and you'll constantly keep believing. And this is why the people are killing themselves as well. Like they do something bad or they feel bad about themselves or they have guilt or shame. And then someone goes on the internet and constantly keyboard warriors you and like smashes you. And all of a sudden it's like, it's not worth living. So you need to always check in and go, what is it that lights me up? Is this really the thing that lights me up? Or is this the thing that I think will make me feel like I'm enough?
Yeah. And this is such a deep topic because, I mean, we can talk about this, but I feel like for a lot of people, they will have to do the work. There's just no way around it. You know, they're aware that they maybe have these subconscious thoughts of I'm not enough, therefore that's driving them to, you know, for example, achieve whatever they want. But like you said, if you don't have that strong foundation with the values in place, then someone can knock you off base. It's kind of like jiu-jitsu, right? Like if you don't have a strong base and I push you, you're going to fall over. It's the same concept that you're talking about. And the values side of it is really important, because if I don't have strong values and I haven't owned what I perceive to be weaknesses in myself, then when I rise to the top, I'm going to have all these critics shining an even brighter light on the stuff that I haven't owned about myself that I perceive to be my weaknesses. So my weaknesses are going to be on the show for everyone else.
Yeah.
And if I haven't owned them, then I'm just going to get absolutely bashed, you know? Yeah.
And it's hard. Like we're human beings. Like Michael Jordan was a human being.
Absolutely.
He was damn competitive. I didn't realize how competitive he was.
Yeah.
But ultimately it's like he's a human being and he makes mistakes. And it's understanding that everybody makes mistakes. And the moment you put someone on a pedestal, you're not giving them room to make mistakes.
Yeah.
You're treating them like they shouldn't make a mistake.
Yeah.
And we have to recognize that we are human beings, and everyone has different feelings and emotions and different upbringings, and understanding that they're on their journey as well, and that's okay. You know? Yeah.
So what would you say to someone who's watching this and they're like, yeah, I like this talk. It's good. You know, I've got some work to do. What are the action items they can get started on?
Well, it depends on what do they want to achieve.
Well, let's say they're aware that they may feel like they're not enough in some regards. I mean, for myself, that's a driver, right? Like feeling like you're not enough, feeling like you're not good enough. That's a driver. And I actually don't think it's a negative thing. I think it's good. It's like a healthy drive, because if I didn't have that, if I was brought up in a family where everything was provided, like, you know, I had everything I needed, I wouldn't have that drive. And so I'm grateful to my parents that they didn't have money, because that taught me the value of work and, you know, thinking outside the box and not emulating them in that regard, you know, and trying to do something better than what they did. They provided me the best life that they could afford me, and I want to just continue that. And so for someone who, for example, they are constantly in this cycle, we didn't even touch on addiction. They're addicted to all the escapism things, like all the stuff that we know as a society that is not going to help us achieve our dreams. So whether it's like alcohol, sex, porn, drugs, whatever it is, right? Food, they're addicted to these things.
So I think the first thing they can do is, one, get a journal. Two, get an app called One Giant Mind that I give my clients. It's a really good way to start. First, in order for you to change anything, you're going to have to become aware of your thoughts, your feelings, and your emotions. So the reason why I say get a journal is because you want to journal at night, every night, and you just want to notice, what are my triggers, or what triggered me that day? Did I have a breakdown? What was my breakthrough with that? What can I learn from that experience? And that's the first part. You start with your awareness. The meditation you do is with One Giant Mind, and it's TM, Transcendental Meditation, and they use a mantra. And the reason why I say that is because you want to make sure that you're sitting with yourself daily, because the more you sit with yourself, the more things will come up. And instead of you trying to control the things in meditation, you're not controlling the thoughts, you're allowing them to pass through you. So you're noticing the thought come up, and then you let it go. You come back to the mantra. And then another thought will come up, and then you let it go. And you come back to the mantra, and then another thought will come up, and then you won't come back to the mantra, and you go, oh, and that thought triggers onto another thought, and that triggers onto another thought, and you go, oh, I notice I'm in the thought again, and you come back to the mantra. You're just teaching yourself to come back to the present. And it's that simple. And not every meditation is going to feel the same, and you're not going to feel good after every meditation, and that's not the point. The point is not to judge the experience, because the moment you judge the experience, the moment you experience suffering. Because one day you'll have a good meditation, you go, oh my God, that was an amazing meditation, I feel so good. And then the next day a whole bunch of shit will come up, and you're like, I don't feel so good. I don't want to do that meditation again. Right? So the whole point is, I don't have a good meditation, I don't have a bad meditation, I just have a meditation. And it's the same thing when you learn to do that on a grand scale of things. It's like there's no good or bad experience, it's just experiences. I make the story up if it's good or bad. And when things are good, then guess what, on the other side, there's good is bad. So you can be like, I've had a really bad week. Based on what? I can be like, well, your bad week compared to Tommy's week is really good, because Tommy actually just lost his car and his child died. So your week looks great compared to Tommy's week. So it's based on what experience, right? And if you constantly let go of like labeling good or bad, and I know it's hard because some days you're going to go, oh, I've had a shit of a day, and that's okay. But if we stop labeling it, you're going to let go of the suffering that comes with that. Get simple again. Simplify it. Make the goal that you want into bite size and reverse engineer it. Remember that every goal is a system. And James Clear says it perfectly. He says, you don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. So if that's your goal, cool. Let me break it down. Success leaves clues, and let me just break down that goal and go, what are all the steps I need to take, and take it step by step, day by day, bit by bit. It's not in the big things, it's in the small things you do daily.
And also in that, being happy whilst you're accomplishing your goal, right? Like not judging yourself, not beating yourself up if you have a bad day, right? Like enjoying the process. And that's the thing that I struggled with. And right now I'm like on this mobility thing, I'm focusing on that and improving that. And it's a constant struggle, or Instagram Live's done, constant struggle, every day to just be conscious of enjoying the process. Because if I focus on the end goal, then I'm going to get overwhelmed. But if I just focus on what I can do today and just be happy with that and just do my best today and just keep that short-term focus.
Exactly. And your best is going to change from day to day based on how you feel, based on the weather, based on this, based on that. But as long as you do your best for that day, then you did the right thing. And it's also recognizing that when you are going through this process, it's just about acknowledging yourself for the small things. right? Every single day. Even if you can do it 3 times at the end of the day, write down 3 things that you acknowledge yourself for at night, and then read it the next morning when you wake up.
Yeah, I've been doing that actually. I've been doing that for the last 3 months.
How's it going?
Yeah, dude, it's been amazing.
Yeah,
because I know you remember you told me about that, and I was like, that sounds really good.
Yeah.
So I started doing it, and I think it's all subconscious, the work that's been going on, because I've just been feeling better and better every day, and I just feel like happier within myself.
Yeah.
And I don't have this is I don't know if it's the longest time I've been single, but I think so in at least the last decade.
Yeah.
And so I just feel like more whole. And I guess it's the whole reason why I want to do this, because I feel like the more whole that we feel as people, the more goodness we attract. You know,
Yeah.
I'm going to attract someone who's at my level of vibration, instead of someone who I feel like I need to bring up to my level, energetically and emotionally. You know, and so it's a nice feeling to be growing every day emotionally and feeling more whole within myself.
Yeah, you're really actually reprogramming your mindset.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's cool. Like in the mirror, I mean, even though I write down what I love about myself, but in the mirror, I tell myself I love myself. And I remember the first day I did that, it felt so weird.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, I love you. And I normally only say that to women, right? Like my partners and stuff. And some of my family members as well.
Yeah.
But I've never said it to myself.
Yeah.
And it was just a weird feeling looking at myself and saying that. And now it's just natural. It's just normal. I say it every day to myself in the mirror.
Yeah.
I say, have a productive day, have a fun day. Most importantly, have fun. I always say that. And it just makes me smile, and it sets off a good vibration for the rest of the day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Your first hour of power, my dude.
Yeah. Hour of power. Yeah. Yeah. So what's your morning routine for people? Because people are probably curious about you.
It depends on what you want in your morning routine, but I first always say to everybody, make sure you have your first hour of power. So it's like, it could be like 20 minutes of meditation. It could be, I always drink a big glass of water.
Yep.
Actually bigger than this every morning. I have music playlist of my favorite music, because music is great, is vibration. And then you can either do a 20-minute routine, or you can read something or listen to a podcast or something that fuels your first hour of the day. Yeah. Right.
So, okay, one of the things that I just was reminded of as I'm talking to you is people's addiction to food. And how do you deal with this, and how do you help people deal with this? So let's say someone has got it in their mind that they absolutely love ice cream, and they can't live without ice cream, right? Like, what would you say to that person? Because clearly we both know that's not true. However, in their mind, they literally feel like that's the truth. They feel like they are happier when they have ice cream. So how do you, you talked about NLP earlier. How do you rewire someone's brain to reprogram them to believe that the ice cream is not helping them become happier?
I guess with any addictions, even let's say coffee, for example. People tell me I need coffee, or even if it's an ice cream, right? I always ask them how often they have it first. And then we don't just take the thing away. I first have to get the client to understand that if we do this is what's going to happen, right? So what do you get when you have ice cream? You get a bit of a sugar rush, your dopamine levels rise. What are you getting? You're always getting something from doing something, right? What do people get when they have coffee? They feel like this rush, they feel like their energy, and I can start my day. I can't start my day without my coffee, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, it's bullshit.
Yeah.
So I'm always like, okay, cool. Well, do you want to rely on this for the rest of your life? And usually they're like, well, no, I just like that. And they try and make excuses of why they should have it. And I'm like, cool. I made a vow to myself that I don't want to rely on anything to make me feel a certain way. Because if I do, then I'm a slave to that thing.
Absolutely.
Right?
That's really powerful. Yeah.
So for people to if it's a food habit or it's ice cream or this and that, you want to make habits easier for you not to be tempted by the temptation of it. So for example, if there's an ice cream place that you drive past, and every single time you drive past, you start to salivate, oh my God, I'm driving past that ice cream place again. Go a different way, right? Or notice yourself, what's happening in your body, like your physiology changes. Your mouth starts salivating. Like you start thinking about it. Like you can literally have a thought, and then all of a sudden that thought, like I'll be driving past somewhere, like there's a place down the road from my house here, has Cinnabons, amazing Cinnabons. And for the first week that I found out that, I was going there like 3 or 4 times a week, and I was like, I don't really eat Cinnabons normally like this, right? But because I was driving past it every day, I would just have a thought, and then I would hold on to the thought, and then I would go and act on that thought like impulse. And this is what's happening in the mind of someone that's like addicted to ice cream or addicted to coffee. It's like, I just feel like a coffee, I'm tired. I need to fix that. Got the coffee, I get the rush, I feel amazing, I can do my work again. So ultimately it's like, if I was to take that away from you, or I was to slow down the coffee just from 5 days a week, let's make it 3 this week. I always look at it like a challenge. How can I challenge you to step and make only 3 days a week this week? And on the days that you don't have your coffee, I get you to write down what came up for you that day. What are the thoughts? What are the feelings? What are the emotions? So then we start to become aware of the pattern. When you are starting to become aware of your thought pattern, you know exactly what you do just before you go and give in to that pattern. And once you can do that and you can break that once, that's a win. Right?
Right.
When you can breathe through that and go, I used to do that all the time, and you can breathe through that, you've just put 1 coin in your self-worth jar. Right? And then you do that again, and then it becomes stronger. So then after a few weeks of me going, like, you've had 5 coffees for like the last 10 years, let's make it 4 coffees this week. Okay, so next week, after this, can you do that 4 coffees? Yeah, I think I can. So you do those 4 coffees, and then after that week, the next week we go, okay, let's do 3 coffees and just see how we go there. And then for the next 2 weeks, let's make you stay on 3 coffees. And I slowly ease you off it, because you're becoming aware of your thought pattern. But if I don't know what I'm going to get from doing that, why would I do it?
Yep.
Right? So what we're doing is we're strengthening your mind, but we're also giving you a different reward, which is when you follow through, you get such a great reward, because you're like, once you believe your word becomes your world, and you can create anything you want when you follow through. You start to trust yourself. I mean, you trust yourself on such a deep level. It's like, what else am I going to create? What else am I going to build? What else am I going to train in? Right?
Yeah, that's really powerful. That whole concept of relying on something external to make you feel a certain way, that is, well, I've actually never heard that before. So that is super powerful, because that's what we do. We focus on, you know, for example, relationships.
Yeah.
You know, we're that film, Jerry Maguire, like, you complete me. Yeah. And you have a video of this on your Instagram, right? Yeah, it's a great video. And you're like, why? Yeah. It's in society, I guess we feel like we are not complete, therefore we need someone to complete us.
Yeah.
And what do you think about that concept of not feeling like we're complete, so we need something external to fill that void?
I think it's bullshit. It's one of those things where it's like, if you're constantly waiting for someone to complete you, you're never going to be complete. And I usually am like, okay, well, how do I feel complete by myself? How do I give myself the approval? How do I accept myself so that I don't need to be fed by this person? And I think it's important for people in relationships that they're doing the self-work on themselves. Like my girlfriend and I, we both we have different strengths in different areas, right? Just I may be more strength in the emotionally intelligent thing because that's my profession, but she's got more strength. She's an actress and she's powerful in other areas, and she's great on camera, where I'm like, oh, I can't talk on camera like she talks on camera, right? And, you know, she's great at articulating her feelings, and I'm great at articulating when I'm working with people, but sometimes I'm not as great with myself. And, you know, we have different strengths in different areas, and understanding that everybody has different strengths, and it's about harmonizing, and it's about, I can help you in certain ways or support you in some ways, you can support me in certain ways, but it's not just a perfect balancing act, right? It's a partnership, and you've heard that saying, I used to think that it's a saying, I forgot who the name was, but it was something like along the lines of, I'm going to love you and you're going to love me and we're going to be a beautiful couple. And now it's like, I'm going to love me so I can love you, and you're going to love you so you can love me.
Right.
Right. And I think that's how it needs to be. It's like, what is the work that I'm doing on myself? And I'm taking responsibility for me, and I'm making sure that I'm filled up so that when I do come into my partnership, I'm supporting her, but she's not relying on me to keep feeding her, and vice versa.
Yeah.
And we grow together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a big thing. I think, my previous relationships, it wasn't necessarily like that. It was kind of like I felt like I was, kind of like pushing her up, like helping her up, which it didn't really feel like a partnership. That was probably because of my issues, nothing to do with her.
What did you get from helping her?
Validation.
Yeah, so you got need, you got something from
I felt worthy.
Exactly. So this is what men do, a lot of men do, is we're problem solvers. So we come in there, we fix the problem, and we feel like, yes, I fixed your issue.
Yeah.
I'm worthy, right? And it's like, this is why men always put their foot in their mouth, where the girlfriend's complaining or she's feeling emotional about something, and we're like, what's your problem? And then we're like, just do this and that. And they're like, they're still talking. Why are they still talking? It's because they want to be heard. They want to feel like you can understand them. And it's not just about giving them the solution. It's about listening. And they want to feel heard. And I think what men do is they come in, they fix it, and they just like, move on, let's go next. It's not always like that.
Yeah. How did you learn all this stuff? Because by now people are wondering, all right, so we've been listening to this guy for like an hour and a half or whatever, how long, I don't know how long it's been, but how did you learn all this stuff, Emile?
Lots of experiences. Books. I've read books. I've read a lot of books. I've practiced a lot of things. I experience. I don't just read it, I actually action it and go, okay, how can I learn this in real life, or how can I use this? And every time I have something happen to me in real life, I actually break it down and I go, okay, cool, what happened there? What was that key turning point? What did I make it mean? And I always take responsibility because I'm creating it. Right? Now, I learned this because I was extremely sensitive and I was a perfectionist and a people pleaser. And I didn't feel enough. So because I wanted to understand those things, that my driver was to learn more about emotional intelligence, because if you understand your thoughts, feelings, and emotions and learn how to be with them, then you're not going to be a slave to your mind. So I went in on different books on, I've read David Data, The Way of Superior Man, The Four Agreements, Untethered Soul. It's a great book, The Surrender Experiment. The Power of Vulnerability by Brené Brown.
Oh yeah, it's a great book.
There's so many great books out there. The Power of Imperfection by Brené Brown as well. So there's so many books you can go out and read, but it's not just about just reading the book. It's about getting the book and going, how can I master the actions and the tips in this book?
Yeah.
And one of the key ones when I first started this journey was The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. And that's a great place to start if you're looking at just starting your self-development journey.
Right, cool. All right, so wrapping it up, what would be the things you'd want to share with people and leave on their minds as a result of this? Because the topic of this video was how to live a fulfilled life and, how to really achieve a state of happiness within oneself, right? And not look for it externally and constantly be chasing, because that's exhausting to just constantly be chasing. Yeah. And, we've touched on a lot of things in this conversation. So what would you say is like the last parting comments, if you had to leave like a few paragraphs of wisdom with people about how to live a fulfilled life? What would you say?
I would say first ask yourself what your values are and get really clear about that. And don't ever sacrifice your values for anybody else. And from there, that's going to be your base, and that's how you're going to make decisions. And then from there, start creating a vision based around your values. Start choosing a career based around your values. Start choosing friends based around your values, and you will never be unsatisfied again.
That's powerful. Yeah. I can attest to that all the values I have friends around those values. And that's why part of the reason, I mean, I'm not relying on them externally to make me happy, but that's part of the reason why I have a better experience of life, because I have friends that are they all fit within my values. You know, I've got different circles of friends in different areas, but it's always in line with my values. So whenever I'm with them, I'm not feeling like I'm not in alignment with my values.
Yeah.
Sorry, go on.
Yeah, because you can literally go out and be surrounded by a lot of people and then be like, I don't feel connected to these people. That's because you don't have the same things in common, or you don't have the same conversation, or you're just doing it because you're around people, but you can still feel lonely. And you could be in a relationship where you're not settled, or you're not satisfied, or you're not fulfilled because you're just doing it because you don't want to be alone. Or you could be in a dead-end job where you're just working because you're getting the money and it's satisfying because you've got security, but you've got no actual satisfaction every single day going to your job. So values are how you make decisions, how you build relationships, your career, how you live your life. And the moment you have them at the forefront of your mind, it literally is going to shine, because it's like you are what you value.
Yeah. So adding on to this real quick. So what are some examples of values?
So for example, my values right now are wealth creation. And I've just added that newest value on there. I've never had wealth creation on my values. And the reason being is because I want to be able to create more than 3 to 5 streams of income. And I want to not just work for time. Right?
Yeah.
My second value is focus, because I think there's so much distractions out there, and I'm a creator and I'm a visionary. So I want to make sure that I'm focused on task. And when I get into a focus state, I get into a flow state.
Yeah.
My third value is health. And the reason being is because I want health to be one of the pinnacles, because the more healthy I am, the more energy I have, the more focus, the more clarity, the more I'm able to show up as myself, right? When I'm tired, well, how do I show up? I'm irritable. I have less patience.
Yep.
I'm not able to focus. I'm not able to get less things done. Fun and play. How do I have fun with this? How do I play?
Yeah.
So I make sure that I have to have fun and add in play to all different things in my life, because if I'm not having fun, what's the point? And full self-expression. And that's one of my favorites. I call the full self-expression value is like the unicorn of values, because when you're in full self-expression, you don't give a shit what you look like or who's watching. You're in full alignment with who you are, and you're expressing to your highest extent, and you're enjoying life. And when you're playing in that realm, it's the best realm you can play in.
Yeah. And that's the ultimate, right?
Yeah. Because when you express how you want to express, how you want, when you want, without caring what people think, then you're free.
It's a lot of work to get to that place, though, especially if you're a people pleaser.
So that's the thing. If you're a people pleaser, it's like, if you are a people pleaser, and what you want to do is you want to find out if you are a people pleaser or if you are someone like a perfectionist. And it's like, a perfectionist needs acceptance, because the perfectionist is trying to get it right and trying to get it perfect, so they get the praise, because they don't want to make sure, they don't want to get the criticism. A people pleaser is looking for approval and looking for people to love them and approve of them. So it's like, maybe I need acceptance for myself as well. Maybe I need to learn how to set boundaries, because when I set boundaries, I'm actually saying yes to myself and no to other people. And when I'm saying yes to you, then I'm saying no to myself. And a people pleaser is ultimately just doing that in a way where it's inauthentic, where it's like, I'm going to act a certain way so this person out there can actually approve of me. And if I act just a little bit like this and a little bit like that, then they're going to give me the acceptance, and then I'm going to feel great. But the moment I actually realize is that I'm sacrificing myself just so someone outside of me can actually like me, because I don't like myself.
Yeah, and this is so deep, because this goes back to childhood, right?
Yeah.
So, for example, my brother and I, he's 4 years younger than me, and our father, he didn't help us understand and appreciate failure in a positive light. Because when we played football, he'd come and watch us, and if we had a crap game, he would let us know for sure. And then so we learned, both of us, to, just perform at a high level. And we'd always be worried that he's on the bench, like watching, like my dad's watching, oh shit, like better perform, like can't put a foot wrong,
Yeah.
And so I think that's where thinking about this people pleasing concept, I think that's where my people pleasing came into play. Because if I didn't please my father, then I knew that something negative was going to happen. Like he would tell me off, or, he would tell me what I did wrong. And, he was obviously coming from a loving place, but that's just how he knew how to show love.
It's probably how he got trained as well by his dad.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's interesting, right? It's because when we put so much pressure on ourselves, we fuck it up.
Yeah.
And it's not sustainable. And of course you can put pressure on yourself and you can perform, but ultimately if you're like, every time you make a foot wrong and you're like, oh my God, I fucked up, I'm stupid, that's not going to breed healthy self-acceptance and a healthy relationship with yourself later down the track. So for me to break that, I need to, one, forgive my father and not blame him. Because that's one thing you might be doing, and you might have resentment there. And then two, how do I embrace myself now, and how can I encourage myself that it's okay that I made a mistake? What can I learn from it, and how can I get back on the track and do a better job?
Yeah, and thanks to you, I have forgiven him for not just that, but other things as well. That I used to blame him for, and that was so therapeutic. Because I remember after the first event, I called him on video and told him I loved him for the first time. And the way he took that was very funny, because he just like kind of laughed it off.
Yeah.
Because he didn't know how to react.
It's like, holy shit.
Yeah.
What is this love?
He didn't say, I don't think he said it back. No, he did say it back, but it wasn't like, it was kind of like a mumble.
Yeah.
It wasn't, I love you too. It wasn't like that, And that really transformed our relationship, I think.
Yeah, man, because you took the first step.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you took ownership of it.
Yeah.
And I think so many people out there that are like wanting to repair the relationship with their parents, they're trying to say, I want him to change, or I want her to change, or she has to show up. She's the parent, she should know better. But in all fact, in all seriousness, as a child, you actually have less baggage than them. They've been carrying this baggage longer than you. So it's going to be easier for you to let go of the baggage and actually take responsibility. And you end up becoming the teacher in a way.
Yeah, and that's the cool thing. And thanks to you, that again, the vulnerability that you had to do that with your own father helped me to find the courage to do that with my father. So thank you for that.
Welcome, brother.
Yeah. All right. So that kind of concludes the conversation. Awesome. Is there anything else you'd like to share with anyone?
No, man. It was a pleasure being on the podcast with you, and seeing your journey as well, Aaron, and recognizing that it's like I said to you before, I'm like, yeah, you have these muscles and this and that, but it's like deep down, like the real Aaron is like, you're a kind-hearted dude, and it's just about you constantly showing that and people seeing that, because that's what they're connecting to on a deeper level, bro.
Yeah, I feel that. Yeah, thank you. Appreciate that, man. Cool. And where can people find out more about you?
So you can go to my Instagram, which is @Emile Steenveld, or my website, www.emilesteenveld.com.
All right, guys, check him out and get on his stuff, because Emile is going to blow your mind. If you get into any of his programs, you are going to transform your life. That's all I can say. And I'm looking at the camera because this is super important right now. Because, I've had a lot of growth in the last couple of years just being his friend, hanging out with him. And it's been a pleasure to really be around a master of his craft. Like I look at you as like a master of your craft, and you want to bigger and better in things, and you just keep growing every day, every year. So it's good.
Thank you very much, brother. I appreciate it.
All right. See you guys in another one. All right. Ciao.
Peace.